And welcome back to the next episode here on CBB Review Studio. We are counting down 10 more teams here in our CBB rank countdown. Today we have teams 70 through 61. Ariel, Dan, we've had 30 teams so far, but these next 10, I know you guys have a glimpse at them. What's the overall thoughts here? Dan, I'll start with you.
I think of the groups of 10, this is episode 4 now of our CBB rank countdown. I think we did the best job of these 4 episodes in terms of ranking these teams. Again, this is an aggregate ranking of a handful of us that we do before the 100-day countdown. So opinions could change sometimes as we do a deeper dive into these teams. But I think 70 through 61, we ranked them pretty well. You know, a couple teams I'd move around a couple spots here and there, which we'll talk about. That's the point of this episode. But, I think we did well with it. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some interesting teams on here, a couple mid-majors, a couple power conference teams, a couple teams with some new coaches with a lot of pressure, and then a couple ones with a lot of pressure because they haven't performed. So I'm excited to dive in with you guys.
All right, let's get things started on a team that has a little bit of both, a coach that hasn't performed and a team that hasn't performed. So pressure on the team and the coach. That is LSU coming in at number 70. Ariel, I'll toss it back to you. Your thoughts on the Tigers this season?
Yeah, I wonder if this is it for Matt McMahon. I mean, the experiment just hasn't worked for them. I think they've had one 500 season, and the rest of the other 2 seasons have been pretty terrible. Even worse, he just doesn't retain talent. Since the start, he's only had one player from his freshman class, and that's Jalen Reed, who missed last year with a torn ACL. So you can put an asterisk on that. He is back, so that'll be a good addition for them. I also love Markel Sutton from Omaha coming into LSU. I think he was a great player. He was the conference player of the year last year in the Summit League. I think he can definitely add a boost. I don't see this team being better than bottom 3 in the SEC. We have that prediction, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, and I just don't know if this program can go any more upwards than it is now, and that kind of concerns me because LSU obviously has a lot of money and plays in a really tough conference.
Yeah, that's the thing. If LSU is truly the 70th best team in the country, which I think is a fair ranking, but if they are number 70, what's their SEC record going to be? Because last year the SEC was historically good. This year I don't think they will be as good. It's just impossible, but I still think they're going to be pretty damn good. That's the problem here. I just don't think they're going to win enough games to have LSU fans feeling like it's worth bringing him back, Matt McMahon, that is. And like you mentioned Sutton, I think that's definitely one of this team's redeeming qualities. Jalen Reed is a staple, returning center coming off an ACL injury, so that'll be interesting. I also like Dayton Thomas, a super talented point guard from UNLV. And I'd say of the mid-major transfers coming in, I'm maybe most confident in Thomas rising to the occasion, even more so than Sutton. Like I said, I think the bottom line is 70 is fine, but that's just going to amount to 3-4 wins in the SEC because the SEC is so good.
Yeah, and let's also not forget this non-conference schedule for LSU, which is just kind of trash to begin with. Even if they do have a good season, SEC is going to be tough, and they just don't have enough in this non-conference to pick up a bunch of wins. They're going to have a winning record in the SEC, which I don't see this team having, right? I mean, I'll read it off in case you guys at home don't know, but this LSU non-conference features Drake, a DePaul or Georgia Tech matchup, at Boston College, and a game against Texas Tech in Fort Worth. That Texas Tech game is really the lone one that might be decent if LSU were to win it. Can't see them beating them. And the other 3, you lose one of those, and it's down. It's not helping you out. Those are the marquee games. Just don't love this. Just don't feel like it's chalked up for a good season ahead for Matt McMahon. But coming up next, number 69, we've got St. Louis, the Billikens. They seem to always make our top 100. They're in at 69th this season. Dan, I'll start with you. Is this a year that we could keep an eye on the Billikens? Because it seems like they almost haven't lived up to the hype lately.
Yeah, I think this is a year. On paper, I have a lot of confidence in the St. Louis team. We know Robbie Avila, he's well-storied, and he's great. And I think Josh Schertz is a good coach. Coming off the bench is Brady Dunlap, at least as we project him. Brady Dunlap, a transfer from St. John's. But of those transfer downs, underperforming or power conference guys that didn't play a lot and then transfer down to a high mid-major school, of those kind of guys, I think Dunlap is one of them that I'm particularly confident in having a bigger role and playing well at St. Louis. So I like their roster. Getting a guy like Paul Altieno from Quinnipiac, who could account for some of the defensive deficiencies that Robbie Avila has. Just he's a good rim protector and add a little bit of offense. So that's a huge add. I like this roster. I like this coach. The problem is the A10 is just it's such a hard league to make the tournament in. I would argue it's the hardest league to make the tournament in, just because there's enough pesky teams in the conference to pick you off and give you a not amazing conference record. But there's not enough good teams at the same time to help you build that resume when you do win. And the conference tournament is just a crapshoot. So I don't know. I like St. Louis should project at the top of the A10. We have them second. I think they're the top team. But again, it's a matter of the conference is just always built by cannibalism. And can they I don't think they're like 2020 Dayton where they're just immune to that.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, whatever you want to call him. He's one of the most fun players to watch in college basketball, and he fits that system perfectly too. I mean, he's been there forever with Josh Hurts, not with St. Louis, but he knows the system. He knows how to succeed in it. Obviously, they lose a couple of really talented players, and the question is who's going to pick up that scoring that Jimerson and all the other guys they lost are going to no longer have. One guy I was looking at was Quentin Jones. He was at Northern Illinois last year. He scored 16.6 points a game. My biggest issue with them, though, is he's not a winning player. He's played 40 conference games in his career. He's 2-38 in those 40 conference games. Played for Cal Poly. They didn't win a single game his freshman year in conference play. And then last year, Northern Illinois, they went 2-18. So you could say he just played for bad teams, and that's unlucky, but it also kind of says something about him, I think. Hopefully I'm wrong, and he could be a productive player for this team and a winning player. But if he's not that contributor from the scoring perspective, then I'm kind of worried who will be, and that could be a problem. But like Dan said, the A10 is so close, and we'll talk about one more team in this top 70 through 61, but any team could really win it, and St. Louis might have a win or two thanks to that duo that we talked about of Shirts and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Hey, and back to the non-conference talk too. Grand Canyon, Santa Clara, San Francisco. St. Louis is literally just playing the West Coast version of the Atlantic 10 in their non-conference. You got to put a power conference team in there.
Those are like good games, but they're just not like brands. You know what I mean?
We're going to enjoy those games, but the March Madness committee is not, and people that don't follow college ball like us are not going to like those games, right? Like you've got to be into the sport to like those games. I don't get why St. Louis can't even schedule a game against like Missouri. Like just play Missouri. Like just do that. Like would it matter? Maybe not, but like play a power conference game. Do that. I will say one more thing on the St. Louis team. Robbie Avila is a great player. I will go back to our first episode. I'm taking George Washington over this Billikens team. I'm serious about that. I like them better. They are better top to bottom than St. Louis. We got that wrong. Sorry, GW fans. All right, let's move on. From a current A10 team to a former A10 team. You guys might have been too young for that. I don't know. Xavier coming in at number 68. They're in the Big East in case you didn't know. I'll start with Xavier. Look, I think this team is going to be all right. Get it? Do we get it?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, Valpo transfer all right on Xavier. I think he could actually play, maybe even start for this team, but I got him coming off the bench for the Xavier team because they got a lot of guards. Let's be honest. Roddy Anderson III, he sat out a year and it was a red shirt and kind of like a purposeful red shirt, right? Like he thinks that he's going to start on the Xavier team this year. Could be the point guard. They got Malik Messina Moore from Montana, Isaiah Walker, another wing from Belmont. Only thing about this Xavier team, though, is that other than some solid guards, after that, like not a great overall roster. Just a bunch of mid-major guys. I think they've got some fun guys. I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch in the Big East. But Dan, I don't know if you agree with me. I don't know if they're going to be a winning team in the Big East.
No, I'm not in love with this 2025 to 26 Xavier team. I will say, to preface, both Patinos in the Big East is as it should be. Like that Patino family fits Big East college basketball to a T. Just pure love of ball. That's what the Big East is about. That's what the Patinos are about. The roster does not look great. I agree. There are a few intriguing young pieces that I think they could build around. Anthony Robinson from Virginia, all right from Valpo. He had a great freshman season. The sky's the limit on him. overall, I see this as a transition years for the Musketeers, and we'll see how they could kind of build down the line. Those are the two guys they build around, but their veterans aren't great.
One thing I'll add to, Matt, you wrote about this in your article, is just who's going to be the playmaker for this team. They didn't have a single player on the roster average more than 3 assists a game last year, and there's no one that screams playmaker, lead guard for this team as well. Roddy Anderson might be that guy, but he never really showed that so far in college. So if this becomes a my turn, your turn situation or stalled half-court offenses, then the defense should be fine, but the offense might be a big problem and could be the difference in a couple of games for them.
Yeah, I think Xavier's going to be a team that wins a couple games in the Big East. I don't think they're a team that we even need to track for the NCAA tournament, to be honest. What did I have them as? I probably had them. Yeah, I had them as maybe like a first-round exit or something, but that's really just because where we have them ranked. I mean, like we think maybe they could get there, and I don't see them going past that. So that's Xavier first.
I think after the top 4 in the Big East, it's just so wide open between like 5 and 10 that they could quietly find their way into 5th, and maybe that's enough to get them into the tournament. Probably not, but they could win a couple games that might lean heavily on the tournament.
They would have to win, they would have to avoid bad losses, which I just don't think they will be able to do.
And low key, that non-con November 19th at Oklahoma State, that's that early in the season for a team like this that might not be gelled, they could lose that game to an Oklahoma State team that hasn't been that great in recent years. That could be a scary game for Xavier going forward that can haunt them. I might be looking at the wrong team, actually. I'm sorry. I'm looking at South Florida. I got the total wrong notes there. So let's just move ahead to 67 South Florida because I'm jumping ahead for myself. South Florida Bulls coming in at 67 for us guys. All right, I'll start with you. This Bulls team, obviously a new head coach, and of course, we obviously have to talk about Amir Abdul-Rahim, who, that was just tragic last season with him passing away and everything that surrounded this program. But this program obviously is rebounding from that, and they've got Brian Hodgson now, and they're trying to do their best job to make sure that they stay, relevant here in the American. What do we think about South Florida this season?
Yeah, obviously a really sad situation that they had to get the coach in the first place. But of any coaching hire, I think this was a top 3 hire this offseason. He was unbelievable at Arkansas State, really underrated just with the talent that he had. But he made the most out of it. And he brings in 2 guys from that team in Joseph Pinion and Isaiah Nelson, who will be great for them. Really love their interior defense too with Nelson and Damian Collins from LSU. I think they're going to be really tough to score on. The American Conference is a 2-man race, in my opinion. Maybe 3 if North Texas can get into that between USF, Memphis, and North Texas, like we just talked about. And I think they might actually have the edge over this Memphis team, who we'll get to in a later episode. But I really like the balance, and I like the defense on this team. And I love Hodgson. I think he's the best coach in the conference. So really excited to see this team. Maybe not the most fun team to watch, but they'll get it done.
Oh, yeah. I think of South Florida and Memphis, I might put South Florida over Memphis in the preseason power rankings. I mean, we don't have to talk about Memphis. We'll talk about them later. But South Florida, I will say, I really like, at least I'm intrigued by the roster construction that Hodgson did here. Just an interesting combination of these low-level transfers, like low majors and D2, and transfers from equivalent conferences to the AAC. And then you got some higher level transfers transferring down. You got 5 true freshmen. I feel like if you're in a program like South Florida, this is the ideal year one for a roster. And who emerges as the team MVP? Not sure about that. You mentioned Collins from LSU. That's who George had, which I could see that. I think this team will be pesky and decent. I think that the American's just not as good as it used to be. So conference realignment kind of destroyed them from a basketball sense, and maybe South Florida could win this conference with, again, which we'll talk about Memphis. They're probably going to be down from even last year. I'm very much though investing in the 2 to 3 year stock of this team. I will say that.
Yeah, and I'll end it on this. I actually do love just the front court that Hodgson has here. I mean, obviously bringing over Damian Collins, Isaiah Nelson coming from Arkansas State, he should feel very comfortable coming over with his coach in this system. And back to that Oklahoma State game, because it is South Florida that's playing Oklahoma State, not Xavier. And I'll reverse course here because This actually seems like a South Florida team that could give Oklahoma State some trouble on the road, right? A South Florida team that has some Arkansas State guys. They're going to be ready to play for their coach. They've got their big first game in a power conference game against the Cowboys. So watch out for that there. So it all worked out. I'm not stupid. I may have said a stupid thing earlier, guys, but I've rebounded, just like the South Florida Bulls will be rebounding this season.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to another USF, and that is the University of San Francisco in at number 66. West Coast basketball here. Ariel, you're not on West Coast time, but you used to be. So tell us about San Francisco.
Yeah, Dan's the West Coast
Dan's
guy.
the West Coast guy.
But yeah, I think Chris Gerlofson and Valentine on Loyola Chicago, they kind of fall into the same tier where they had great coaches before who got a lot of media attention for their success in Todd Golden and Porter Moser. And since they left, they've been doing a great job, but they haven't really taken that next step. So they haven't gotten the attention they deserve. And Chris Gerlofson's been great for San Francisco. They've been a consistent 20 win team, top 4 in the conference at all times. And I really like the team that they're bringing in. They lose Malik Thomas and Marcus Williams, which is going to be a hard 2 to replace. But they bring back Tyrone Riley, who I thought as a freshman showed a lot of promise. And with an increased role this year, he'll be really great. 2 transfers they brought in, Mookie Cook. Jeez, I'm sorry, guys. And Guillermo Diaz-Graham. Mookie Cook was at one point a top 5 recruit. Really fun player to watch in high school, and I'm really curious to see if he can pan out there. Really couldn't do anything at Oregon. And then Diaz-Graham, who ACC people know too well, probably the skinniest player in college basketball next to his brother, who isn't at the team anymore, unfortunately. But I think this team will definitely finish 3 as their floor. Gonzaga and St. Mary's are probably still the top 2, but they're looking more mortal than ever. And I think San Francisco can keep things close and maybe even beat Gonzaga for their first time ever.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Like, they never, ever beat Gonzaga. Not even like everyone's. Like, I think they're like 0 for their last 12 or 15, something like that. And that's my issue here. You're not going to get an at-large bid if you don't beat Gonzaga. And obviously you're not going to get automatic bid if you don't beat Gonzaga in the WCC tournament. So that's a difficult thing there. I do like this San Francisco team. I think 66, third in the WCC, is right where they belong with their returners. And I think Guillermo's the better of the Diaz-Graham brothers. I think. Yeah, Guillermo's definitely the better one, so that's good. There's no reason to believe they could take the step up, especially without Malik Thomas. I'm not sure that they're any different than any other year where they're relevant, fun, but inevitably lose to Gonzaga. And even Todd Golden couldn't beat Gonzaga, and he just won a national championship. So I think that says a lot.
Yeah. Look, I'll end on San Francisco here. I think the biggest thing I see here is the potential of the defense and just the thickness of some of these players. Excuse my language there. Don't put me on one of those reels on YouTube. Masick, their shooting guard, is listed as 6'5", 220. Tyrone Riley, 6'6", 200. Wang as the power forward, 6'9", 250. Diaz-Graham, 7 foot 220. That's some tough guys to match up against, right? So look at the San Francisco team. Obviously, you got a 5'11" point guard, but overall, like that's bigger than most teams are going to be. I don't know. I think that could kind of play into stuff in the WCC. And I'll be honest, usually that's a conference where teams do recruit some pretty big guys. Gonzaga does, St. Mary's does. So I don't know if it'll matter, but I don't know.
They got Diaz-Graham at 220?
That's what they have him as. Is that wrong?
I don't think he's that much, is he?
I think he's closer to 190.
Yeah.
Unless maybe this offseason he just put on a ton of weight and
Yeah, I mean he might have. Like they have him at 205 on Sports Reference, but San Fran has him at 220, so maybe he gained weight.
Yeah. There's 2 possible explanations there. 1, he actually gained weight, or 2, they want you to think that.
Yeah, but the other 3 guys are really the ones to point out anyways. Like those 3, that could really help. Let's move on to our next team. Number 65, a new era at VCU. Dan, why don't we go right back to you in the A10 here?
So, yeah, Ryan Odom is gone. I think the thing about VCU is through multiple coaching tenures, they have just consistently been good. They're just a good basketball program, similar to like Utah State. Just doesn't matter who's coaching there. They'll have the support. They'll hire someone good, and they'll be one of the better mid-major teams year after year. I have a little bit more doubts about Phil Martelli Jr., the new head coach there. And I don't think this roster is great either. To be honest, of these 10 teams, I'm probably the lowest on VCU. I do like Ahmad Noel from UConn. That guard rotation at UConn is tough to crack for sure. And we've seen 12th men on UConn transfer down and do very well at this kind of level. I think Russell Diggins comes to mind, former UConn guard transferred down to UMass and just third team, second team all conference, something like that. Nick Lewis, a fringe top 50 freshman. That was a massive ad, and he'll probably get some run right away. So those are the good things, but overall, I don't think they have the troops. Not sure this is a top tier A10 team to me. And I disagree with you, Matt, on that George Washington being better than St. Louis, but I think George Washington might be better than VCU, actually.
Yeah, what makes this team so deadly is their defense, and we know that they're going to be one of the top defenses in the country and by far the top defense in this conference, and that could be the difference maker. I agree the offense doesn't look that great, and there's no one that really stands out right away that's just going to really carry this team or be the MVP, but they have such a good collective defense, and Martelli Jr. will make sure that they stay consistent, that's going to be the difference. And will they win the conference? Maybe. I'd say I give them like a 55% chance.
Wow.
Just because of how consistent they've been, and I think their defense is that good that they're going to really shut down a lot of offensive reliant teams, but it's not a guarantee like we saw the last couple of years.
You're talking regular season with that 55, right?
Yeah.
That's just not how tournament. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Look, I'll agree too. I'll actually. Wow, Dan, it's funny because I almost think this VCU team is better than St. Louis, personally.
Okay, disagreement's good.
It's so close at the top.
I'm looking at one guy in particular though here, guys, and that's Lazar Djokovic, because I wonder how much he played in the shadow of Ante Brzovic when he was at College of Charleston. And I'm probably pronouncing those names a little bit wrong, but I know who I'm talking about here. Brzovic at Charleston averaged 18.5, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Djokovic kind of playing with him, but also behind him in a way, because obviously, Brzovic is just going to get all the touches to that position, right? Like he's going to be the big guy, getting the touches there, and he can just do it all on the court. So what can Djokovic, who was a sophomore, he averaged 8 points, 6.3 rebounds. Like, what can he do now that this is kind of his front court at VCU? That's what I would argue. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what he can become. I think he could be in for a really big season. I think that's a guy to keep an eye on. But I do think that, look, VCU, the consistency, we talk about it, that's key sometimes. When you talk about consistency, doesn't matter what coach they have, they find a way. So VCU at number 65. Let's go to the Atlantic 10 of the West Coast, and that is Boise State in at 64 out of the Mountain West. Ariel, I'll flip it back to you for this one.
Yeah, you spoke about consistency, and Leon Rice has been just that the last couple of years. Tournament team consistently. Didn't make it last year for the first time in a couple of years, so doesn't want to keep that streak going. They do lose Tyson Degenhart, 3-time All Mountain West Conference player, and Cardenas, who was a top 10 assists per game guy last year. But they bring back Andrew Meadow, who took a huge step last year, a guy who I wasn't really expecting to take that step, but he was terrific last year, and I think as the first option, he could comfortably be the conference player of the year in a really competitive conference. Another guy to watch is Dylan Andrews, really up and down career with UCLA. His sophomore year, he actually led the team in scoring, and then last year he kind of found himself losing more and more minutes in the rotation. So hopefully a fresh start here will kind of get him back on track. He can be a 12, 13 point per game guy. Then he'll fit his role perfectly. Mountain West should be good again. Not as good as the last couple of years, just because we've seen some really talented players and coaches leave. Teams like Colorado State, and then, of course, Grand Canyon comes in. But Boise State, I think they should be back in the tournament this year.
Agreed. And they still won, 25, 26 games last year. So it wasn't like a huge step down, I think. When we're analyzing the Mountain West, 2 years ago, they were historically good by mid-major standards. And last year, they were just like what they usually are. And I think this year will kind of be like somewhere in the middle of the last 2 years. And Boise State is probably a top 3 team in that league. You mentioned Meadow and Andrews. Pearson, I should say, Carmichael, another guy I think could take a massive freshman to sophomore leap in a similar sense that Meadow did. And then, they just had sustained success. They win 25-plus games every year. They have a good team. I see them doing it again. Like another team, if I were to project them right now in this way too early bracketology nonsense that a lot of people like to do, probably like a 10 seed.
I think that'd be fair. I mean, luckily Matty Brackets has not done one yet, so I'm not part of this nonsense. But I would see that. I mean, look, you got Dylan Andrews, a guy who can proven, play, and now he probably gets a chance to maybe show a little bit more on this Boise State team that he could at UCLA. I really like the combo of this team. You talk about a team having guys that are going to be tough to match up against. I mean, they could go 6'7" on the wing, 6'7", 230 at power forward, and 6'11" with Drew Fielder at center. I mean, that's a big team when we talk about height and who's going to be able to match up with that. I don't know. You look at what Boise State might be able to provide. I think that's the biggest thing here is Leon Rice is going to have guys that are going to be tough to match up against. Look, I like this team a lot. I've liked Boise State for a couple of years, but when you lose Tyson Degenhart, what's going to replace that? Because I've been on the Boise State train for a few years and they just haven't done it. Like, I just want to see them go on a run. I feel like this program deserves it. I don't know if this is the year for it, which probably means that they're going to get it done in March.
Yeah.
So, but listen,
I'm gonna make a bold prediction. I'm gonna lock this team in for one of the first 4 games right now on September 28th.
Yes.
I'm gonna lock them in right now. They just scream the first 4 game. The second game on the Tuesday night, they'll be playing.
100%
right now.
Great prediction right there. Are we on this podcast believers that the Mountain West and their underperformance in the tournament is actually a thing or just a coincidence?
100%.
You think it's a thing or a coincidence?
I think it's a thing. I think the elevation also doesn't help them because they rely on that a lot when they're playing opponents, and when they go to a place without it, then they lose that advantage and it hurts them a little bit when they're on a metaphoric and realistic even playing field.
Yeah. All right, let's go to a coach who needs to start elevating his win totals. That is Kim English in Providence in at 63. Entering year 3 after taking over for Ed Cooley. Winning season in year 1, but a 12-20 season last season. Kim English obviously started at George Mason, one of the younger coaches in college hoops, and came in with a lot of hype around him, but we're not really sure what's that looked like after 2 years. We're not sure if he's really the answer at Providence. We kind of think he's not, but hey, it's only been a couple of years. But look, this is a Providence team, guys, that lost Bensley Joseph, lost Jaden Pierre, obviously Bryce Hopkins. I didn't even list him as a notable departure because he hasn't played a game in like 5 seasons, so it just doesn't feel right to have Bryce Hopkins as a notable departure on this list. But look, they return a lot and they bring in a lot. They've got Corey Floyd back, Ryan Mella, Oswin Ernhum-Wansi, Rich Barron. I mean, there's actually like a lot of guys that returned for this Providence team that were in the rotation last season. And then they bring in the guy I want to talk about, Jason Edwards, averaged 17 points per game at Vanderbilt. He scored at North Texas. He proved he could do it in the SEC. There's no reason he wouldn't be able to do it in the Big East, right? Like, I don't think this is the Big East of old where you've got a lot of tough defenses that they play defense in the Big East, but Jason Edwards can still average 15, 16 or more a game in this conference. Yeah. And I don't think he's going to need to for Providence. So a lot to like here, but Dan, can Kim English get it done with this squad?
Yeah. So everybody in the coaching industry has this fascination with Kim English. Like, they swear by him, and a lot of people who forgot more ball in the last day than I will ever know. But a lot of us see it. Like, what is there in terms of his track record to rave about? And I'm just not sure. I believe in him as like a pure coach to elevate the talent of this team. I will say this roster is awesome. You talked about Jason Edwards, just an absolute bucket getter. And you talked about Ryan Mella, who could emerge as a side piece. Pretty good pronunciation on Oswin. I couldn't find a pronunciation on the Providence website. I was searching for 5 minutes, so I'm not even going to try to say his last name, but he was a great rim protector in his freshman year, and the offense might follow. So that's big. Jalen Sellers coming back from injury. That could be interesting. This team has a lot of intriguing pieces, a lot of upside. A couple problems. I think the shooting is not there again. And if they're not going to be able to shoot the ball that well, then that definitely limits their ceiling. I also think, like I said, just relying on Kim English to maximize his talent. He hasn't proven the ability to do that yet, but once you do it one time, then all of a sudden the narrative changes. So he's a young coach, and we'll see if the reputation kind of comes into fruition finally.
Yeah, I really don't like him English. I'll be honest here. At George Mason, you look at his stats as a coach, and they weren't great. And then he leaves, and look at George Mason now. They comfortably won their conference last year. Didn't make the tournament, but they looked great last year. They're going to look great again this year. And then Providence, since Ed Cooley left, has kind of found themselves in the gutter of the Big East. So what does that say about Kim English? Probably not good things. You guys have said it. The talent is there, but when the guy in charge isn't good, it doesn't matter. I'm praying that Providence makes the smart decision here and makes this his last year. But sometimes talent outweighs coaching, and he can find himself a couple more years with this roster.
Guys, do you know what Kim English's record is in March?
0-0.
Well, fair in March Madness, yeah. But in the month of March, 6-12 as a head coach.
Oh God!
3 of those wins, half of those wins came in his second year at George Mason. One of them was over Fordham, who we all know has not been that great, so that's not saying much. And then 2 were over Richmond that same year.
A10 pillow fight games.
Yeah. So
Get him out.
6-12 in March, guys. And I know some of these games have been NIT, like postseason conference games. It doesn't matter. But a lot of this has been he's not done good in the conference tournament in the Big East. He's not done good down the stretch in the Big East. It's not looking good for Kim English and Providence. And I know we shouldn't be talking about just him because there's a lot of talent on this team. But unfortunately, that's kind of what it's going to come down to for this Friar squad. In at number 62, a former Big East team. Again, you guys are probably too young to remember that. But that is number 62, West Virginia. Ariel, you wrote this one. Is West Virginia, how would they do in the Big East with this team, and how will they do in the Big 12 with this team?
I think they'd be a lot better in the Big East than the Big 12 because, there's a lot of great teams in the Big 12. And we talked about how after the top 4, it's really a toss-up in the Big East. I'm also a little biased, obviously. But obviously DeVries leaving is a huge bummer. He goes to Indiana. But another home run hire, Ross Hodge from UNT. We saw what he did since Grant McCasland left. And UNT coaches have fared well in the Big 12. We've seen how great Grant McCasland's been at Texas Tech. The more I look at this roster, the more I fall in love with it. I mean, Honor Huff from Chattanooga, awesome. Jasper Floyd and Brennan Laureate, who follow Hodge from North Texas, they're awesome. And then the make or break X Factor guys, Trace and Eaglestaff from North Dakota. We saw him score 40 points against Alabama at home last year, almost single-handedly upset them by himself. And then in the conference tournament quarterfinal, he scored 50 points. So he's a bucket getter. My biggest thing is, can he adjust to a role where the offense doesn't revolve around him and he needs the ball in his hands at all times, because that's not how it's going to be. And if he can't do that, I'm a little worried about his future, and I can see him fizzling out. But if he can kind of become just a 15-point per game guy on good shooting splits, then this is a team that could really shine and be, I'd say, even top 35 in the country. And we have them at 62 right now.
Yeah, it's so interesting that they just grab Ross Hodge, 2 years of head coaching experience. I think we're at the trend of college basketball where it's a lot better to be a little bit early than to settle for something that's less than optimal. And that's kind of been the mindset with a couple of these hires. I might want to disagree with you on Eaglestaff. So are we sure that there won't be nights where the offense does this is maybe not the most likely outcome, but I think there definitely is a world where the offense does revolve around him, where everything just clicks on a micro level or a macro level, and they just, feed the hot hand and let him cook. Are we sure that he's just demoted to a role player and he's not necessarily a star here?
I think there are going to be games where there's that, but he comes from a situation where every game was that. So he has to be okay with not being in that position every game and taking that backseat and letting Huff go and Floyd facilitate the offense. And maybe he kind of has a smaller role in some games where he's getting picked on defense. If he's okay with that, then I think it's going to be good. But like you said, there could be games where he's just feeling it. He can score 27, 30 points and just dominate and lead them to an easy victory.
But yeah, other than that, I agree. Really love Floyd. Just a North Texas guy, a good on-ball defender, does enough on offense. I like West Virginia for sure.
Yeah, it does seem, guys, real quick, like a team that, you're bringing a lot of mid-major guys. How's that work? Sometimes they don't always translate to the Big 12, but Ross Hodge seems like a guy that can make it work. And these are also more like upper echelon of mid-major players, right? Like these are like better mid-major players than just bringing in a guy from like Sacred Heart per se. Like you're bringing in guys from winning teams from higher mid-major conferences. What are you gonna say, Dan?
No, it's just a random stray.
First one that came to mind. The Pioneers. Give them some respect.
No, keep going, keep going.
No, but that's all I really had. That is this West Virginia team to me. I do think they can be competitive here, and I think they're in good hands after what we saw what happened with Darian DeVries in Indiana. I know we'll get to them later down in a different episode, but yeah, interesting stuff around this program lately. We move on to number 61. Guys, you know Notre Dame was in the Big East once, or are you too young for that too? I'm going to keep using
this. Is that the theme of this section is just former Big East teams and current Big East teams?
Ariel, who's the first Notre Dame player that comes to mind? Go.
Bonzie Colson.
Dan.
Marcus Burton.
Oh, you guys are so young. Luke Herringody is the correct answer. Let's get to Notre Dame. I wrote this article, and that's really all we got to talk about. Marcus Burton. You just have some teams on this countdown, and it's really just one player that puts them to the top, right? And that is Marcus Burton for this Notre Dame team. He's been that. He's going to continue to do that. Look, JJ Starling left this program, and Marcus Burton just took over. I mean, he just said, "I'm going to take this into my own hands." But unfortunately, that's kind of the pitfall with this Notre Dame team and Micah Shrewsbury. He really doesn't have much around him. Braden Shrewsbury is actually not that bad of a player. I'll relate that to when Buddy Boeheim played for Jim Boeheim. Like, Braden Shrewsbury deserves to play for Micah Shrewsbury. He would play for a lot of other power conference teams. I don't think it's just because his dad is the head coach. Like, I truly don't. But I don't know who else on this. Like, are you going to rely on a freshman to Jalen Harrelson? Is Keba Ng going to have to score 10 points a game? Like, I don't know of these options what's going to happen. So it just seems like another season where Marcus Burton's going to chuck up 20 shots a game, and they're going to hope that some guys help out and other guys might not. And I don't know where the consistency is, guys. So unless you see it, that's what I see with this team.
I don't see it. I just like I think I mentioned Marcus Burton. Like, I think he's a great player. I don't think he's just like a microwave 21 point per game. Like, he's a good player, but they did not. I was kind of going into the offseason hoping that Shrewsbury would go in and kind of get better role players. And I don't really like when I think of teams with just great couple options and just absolutely atrocious non-power conference role players. Last year's Rutgers team comes to mind, but I think this Notre Dame team could be very similar. And Shrewsbury, like, year one, it was a situation where he had a lot of youth and we're just like, hey, let him develop. And then year two, they didn't really get much better. I would have hoped he just used the port a little more. They just got one Division I transfer and Carson Tout from Northern Arizona, who's our projected sixth man. So this team has its stars, but I just wish they did more to reinforce the role players. 61's fine for them, though. I think that's kind of where they belong.
Yeah, Carson Tout actually led the country in rebounding last year at 12.4 rebounds per game. So I don't think he'll do that at Notre Dame, but he could be a great piece, especially for second chance opportunities. And then you talked about it, Matt, Jalen Harrelson coming in. He's the top recruit in program history, according to 247 Sports.
Wow.
He's the 17th recruit overall in this class. So if he can add a different dimension and really bolster up that front court, that would be great for that team. Burton will probably lead the country in scoring, but who's going to be in that number two? Is it going to be Shrewsbury, who's good? But I think if he was on Sacred Heart, then he would be no, he would be good on Sacred Heart. But if he was on Providence, he probably would be their 8th or 9th man. No disrespect to Braden there. But I think he gets a little more playing time because of his situation. Like you said, I think 61's a good spot. I think they'll probably finish around 11th, 12th in the ACC. I don't know where we have them, but that feels like a good spot. They'll probably just miss the tournament or come a couple games behind. And if Marcus did last year, then it's going to go pretty downhill pretty quickly.
That's true, too. They had a lot of injuries last season. Look, it'd be fun to see Marcus Burton in the tournament. It's just too bad they couldn't put someone else around him. Even just a little bit of a better post scorer down low, right? Like just someone. But that does it for Notre Dame. By the way, at least they have an easy schedule. It's not like they're in the Players Era Championship or something. Which, yeah, they are. And they play Kansas. So that's going to be a rough one for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the Players Era. That's yeah.
We'll have an episode on that on its own, right?
Absolutely.
That'll be very fun. That's our 10 teams, guys. We've been going for a while today, so I will call it here. Remember to subscribe, Remember to follow us here on CBB Review as we get out the next 10 coming shortly for you. But for now, that has been Team 70 through 61. That is Dan Siegel. That is Ariel Puterman. I am Matt Mlodzinski saying thanks for listening and have a good rest of your day or night.